Hello, my name is Cassandra and in this video I'm going to talk about my writing journey. I should start off by saying that I am rather jealous of people who say I've been writing since I was a child, because I have not been doing that at all. Although I had created some poems in Greek when I was in elementary school, and I had written a couple of songs in English when I was in high school with very disturbing lyrics. I was not so much into writing. I did love stories. I've always loved stories, and I really enjoyed reading comics. So comics was really one of my first loves when it comes to storytelling. And I wasn't that good at drawing, but I enjoyed doing that. And I had not created comics, but I had a few drawings, and I had come up with stories of what was going on behind the scene. Eventually, I participated in some comic seminars and I created a few comics. But it actually took me a while before I realized that writing is something that I really enjoy doing. At some point, I had purchased a free online course on writing, and I had made it a goal to write 10 minutes every day. So I would take my notebook and my pencil and I would go out and I would get inspired by anything that you can imagine, and I would just write for 10 minutes. That was the goal. Of course, most often I ended up writing much more than that, but the 10 minutes was the goal. I actually didn't do this for a very long time, but regardless, in these few days that I did it, I actually came up with the idea of what I am currently turning into my first novel. And actually the idea wasn't really... Well, the idea was that a girl was dreaming of blue butterflies in a kingdom, and then she finds out that these are actually not dreams but memories from her past life. And that's not really a story. So I had scribbled down this thought, and I was thinking that, okay, at some point I will get back to it. Maybe I will turn it into a story. And after many years, I actually decided to look deeper in this concept. And actually, the dreams and the butterflies and the kingdom don't really exist in the story I'm writing now. They don't. The kingdoms do, but not in the way that I had thought of originally. But I think it's fascinating that with these 10 minutes a day writing, the original idea came for the book that I'm currently writing. After many years, I actually started writing the first chapter of this story, and I was doing that while I was working as a secretary in a school of reflexology. It was my second job, and I actually had a lot of free time because I was mostly needed at specific hours throughout the day, and then I was working on some graphic design things that they wanted me to do, and I was fast, so then I had free time to do what I wanted. I wasn't in front of people, I was in an office on my own, very nice. So I would write in my notebook the first chapter. I think I wrote around 7 chapters before I abandoned the story for many years, and again, I started writing at some point, then I stopped, I started writing again and I stopped, and that was constant for many years of my life. It took me a long time to realize that it was a combination of low self-confidence, of not understanding what I was doing with the story. There were actually many, many things, and there was a fear of failure, and it was just, many issues along the way. But eventually I realized that I really, really want to tell this story. And at that period of time, I actually moved to Norway and I stayed there for 1.5 years. I actually moved there in order to become inspired. I looked at it as an adventure. My sister and her roommate, they had decided to move outside of Greece because they could no longer take it here. But they asked me if I wanted to join them. So I said yes for the adventure, and I stayed there for 1.5 years and I came back. But at that period of time, I remember there was a moment. So I wasn't writing during the whole time, not at all. Sometimes I would, most often I did not. And the story was not in my mind either. But there was a moment when we actually stayed in a place not to the center of Oslo. Oslo is the capital of Norway. So the place we stayed at is called Asker, and more specifically in Dikemark. So that's even further away. You have to take a bus that if you miss it, like in the night hours then you cannot go there. It's very far away to walk there. While I was staying there, sometimes I would think of the story, sometimes I did not. Then there was a chance for me to live in Oslo. A person I met in Norway, he had to move to another place for some time, and his job actually paid for his house. So he told me if I wanted, I could stay there until he came back for free. So that was great. I did that. And then there was the time that I had to return back to Dikemark. And again, while I was living in Oslo, not once did I think of continuing my writing. And, sometimes you start with certain expectations, and then life just, gets in the way, or not exactly, but you forget your initial goals. You start working and then you are too tired to do anything. Although I was joining board games, I met people, and one of whom I became very good friends and we still keep in touch. But I didn't have a vision on my writing, on my story. So the second time that I returned back to Dikemark, I was carrying my suitcase, and it was dark, it was late evening, and it was cold, and it was great because I was sweating, so the cold at that moment was great. And I remember I stopped at some point and I realized that this is perfect. I will be staying here and my job is in Oslo, like it was before. And so I will need extra time to go to my job, like I did before. I moved to Oslo for a short time. And so I had extra time in the bus and in the train station in order to write. It was like this moment, this sparkle. And I realized that this is what I'm going to do. And from that moment onward, I started writing diligently, consistently, and I cannot remember if I had a goal initially regarding word count or how many hours I would write. But I would write on my way to work, and I actually had a notebook, so I wrote everything on the notebook, and when I came back home, when I returned from the work, I would type everything at the computer, which was, well, like extra wasted time. But I didn't have a laptop, and I did not have the financial ability to have a laptop. But I did buy one eventually, a refurbished Chromebook. I bought it when I came to Greece for vacations, and I thought there is no way I will stop writing while I'm in Greece. So I came here for, I think, 24 days for vacations. I took all of my vacations in Greece because I missed Greece a lot. And I bought the laptop and I wrote, I kept writing. And then I returned to Norway. I had the laptop. And I was so into my story. I loved how it was going, and I didn't want to stop writing. So when I started the work in the morning and I had to, when I reached the train station in Oslo and I had to shut the laptop, I was like, rah. I hate this. I wish I lived even further away. But what I actually did from one point onwards, I was working as a housekeeper. So I cleaned dirty rooms in a hotel. And I actually, we had an application that said what rooms we have to clean. So I saw which rooms were completely empty. So no guest was staying there. They had left the hotel. So it was empty for me to clean and then for a new guest to come in. And what I would do was that I would go to one of those rooms. I would sit inside or close the door and the doors automatically lock. And I would write. And my break, I would do that. Instead of going to the canteen and eating, I would stay in a dirty room and I would write for the 30 minutes that was my break. And then I would continue cleaning. And oftentimes, after I started cleaning, I put my laptop in my bag and I started cleaning, ideas would keep coming to my head. And I also had a notebook, like always, so I would scribble them quickly and then get back to doing the bed and all that. And I did that for the remaining time that I stayed in Norway. And then I returned to Greece. And actually the first 2 weeks, I think, or the first week when I came back to Greece, I actually completed what I considered was the first draft of my book. But as fate has it, it was not. It was actually an effort. It was something that I completed. Okay, I am proud of that. But it was not a good story at all. And the mistakes were too many to mention. But a few of them was the fact that the characters were very shallow and they did not have it's like they were mixed. They did not have a clear personality. They did not have tags. They were not unique. Another problem was that there was constantly conflict, which is a good thing, but there was no connection to the characters at all. They just had to face one trouble after another, and there was no connection to the characters. There was no background story. There was some dialogue, but it was just very bad. It was bad, and I couldn't see it while I was writing. And I was very happy, my brain just had all these ideas. But in the end, it was not good enough. And it took me a long time to realize that. Actually, yeah, as I started, after I finished the first draft and I said, okay, now what's the next step? Oh, I have to edit the first draft. I am working on the second draft now. Cool. And I started doing that and I realized this story is shit. This is horrible. What have I done? So, yes. I realized that I had to start at the beginning. And actually the thing is, it took me a long time to do that because after I returned to Greece, I found a job at KFC. So it's like a fast food, stressful job. But at the beginning, I was very lucky because I found a job in a place that was brand new. They opened a new KFC and we were too many employees. The staff had too many people, more than what was needed. So what happened is that we would chat with each other. We had time. It was really nice. Of course, eventually they realized that we cannot have that many people here and they decreased our working hours a lot. And then it was very messed up because one person, and I remember specifically one day, I was left on my own for 30 minutes and I had to pack the orders for delivery. I had to give the orders to the customers that came to the store. And of course, I had to accept the orders that came. I had to prepare the burgers, the fries, the tortillas. Pretty insane. I think the only thing that I didn't do was go to the kitchen and make the chickens as well. So that wasn't nice and I searched for another job, but the thing is, writing was left behind for quite some time. And then I realized after a year, and I think a little less than that, after I came back to Greece and I was staying in Athens, where I grew up, I realized that I can no longer stay in Athens. I cannot stand all this cement, all these big buildings, and I cannot see the sun, I cannot see the sky. And that I realized that after staying in Norway and seeing the beauty of Norway, nature and all the beautiful landscapes and even their buildings, they are beautiful. Of course, they have these houses with the rooftops. Oh, I love this. But they are not so much in Oslo. But even in Oslo, they have some very beautiful buildings that we don't have in Greece, and especially in Athens. So I decided to move out of Athens and I came to Nafplion, where I stay now. And I actually wanted to live in an island because I really want to be next to the sea, which is something I really, really missed while being in Norway. Eventually, I started working on my second draft, which never happened because I had to delete everything and I had to work on my characters and I had to work on my world building more. And it was a process. It took quite a while, but I am very, very happy I went through with it. And actually, I don't know why, but I never thought that, I worked so hard on the first draft and now I'm just going to throw all of it away. I had imagined all these scenes and all these events and then none of that is going to happen. I actually didn't think of that at all. I don't know why, But I was so happy with the things I created, the backstory, the kingdoms, the gangs. Oh yes, there are gangs. It's a really nice story. And I am very excited with all the things that I created and my characters. Yes, my characters. Especially my protagonist, she was the most difficult for me to create. I could create her backstory, no problem. But for some reason, she came out really weak. In spite of the traumatic events that happened in her childhood, which we need to put in our characters to make them interesting and to give them conflict, in spite of all that, she became weak when I started writing her on the page. And I found a song that helped me. This song, I was listening to it every day before I started writing, when I eventually started writing my first draft, although it was a second one, but I don't count the first one at all. I'm sorry. I say this is the first draft. Okay, so I was putting this song to listen to before I started writing, and it's called Battle Cry by Imagine Dragons, and it fully expresses my protagonist's emotions and the frustration and everything in her. So I would put the headphones, close my eyes, and visualize her backstory, the traumatic events, and how the book actually begins, the first chapter. What happens, the inciting incident, and what she has to do, and how her life changes. So I would do that. And I actually did that for, I think, 2 weeks. Every day I would do that. And it would help me so much to bring all this emotion to the surface, which was incredible. And I really needed that in order to make her dynamic. Because for some reason, I couldn't do it. I knew her backstory and all the events that had happened, but it was like I was reading, I don't know, I was just reading a text. I couldn't get into her emotions. So this song helped a lot. And eventually I reached a point where I knew her so well. The more I wrote, I could so easily understand how she felt and what she would think and how she would act, that I didn't need the song anymore. And in fact, if I tried and I put my headphones on and I started the song, I was like, no, I want to write already. I was so excited and the story was already in me. I knew who my character was, who my protagonist was, and who my main characters are. So I just wanted to write. And I guess this brings us to today. I think so. I am currently still writing the first draft. I have written 59,000 words, and it's a dark fantasy. I actually had never read a dark fantasy book. I had no idea what it was, and I was reading some messages in a forum that's with fantasy storytelling, and someone asked, do you think my story is dark fantasy? And I know that dark fantasy is this, this, and that, and I'm like, oh, hold on, that's my story. So it's very interesting that I'm writing a genre I have never read before. Of course, I did read one dark fantasy book without knowing it. After I started writing my book, I actually read it a few days ago, and it's called Half Bad. I read the whole trilogy, and I should leave my emotions for another video. There was a lot of crying. Actually, yesterday I finished the book, the third book, and I was crying all day. I could not meditate because meditation is a part of my everyday life, and I could not focus on that at all. I was crying all day, and at night I fell asleep crying, and I woke up and my eyes were swollen. Yeah, so that was an experience, surely. But I have not read any other dark fantasy book. I have bought many books that are unread, but I don't know if I have any dark fantasy in them. I will have to check this out. So now I am in 59,000 words of my book, and I am stuck completely. And I watched a helpful video that said that when you're stuck in the midpoint, it's important. It said several things, but one thing that remained in my thoughts is that you should check all the conflict that has happened so far and make sure that it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and then the climax happens. So, and also that it's not resolved. I mean, if you just resolve, if your characters simply resolve all the conflicts, then it will be a static story, you know. Conflict happens, okay, the readers already know it's going to be resolved. So what? You know, it becomes boring. And that's what I was doing, actually, and I hadn't realized it. And I think something extremely important happened in my story that was supposed to change the direction of my characters, but their direction did not change. So it's very strange at the point where they are right now. So I went back to the beginning and I checked all my conflicts. I actually took many notes. So I am again at chapter 6, and I am trying my hardest not to edit the first draft. I am adding things. I am changing the conflict. Yeah, I edit. You can probably hear motorcycles from outside. I'm sorry about that. I don't make the conflict be resolved that easily, but I am trying my hardest not to change all the information that actually has to change when I get to the second draft. Because the more I wrote, the more world building naturally happened. And so I realized that some things that I had written in the beginning did not really work in the plot. And so all of these either have to change or be deleted. And I have a document that says when you get to the second draft. So these are all the changes that I will need to do. And that's how you should work on your first draft, because the first draft is all about writing it and finishing it, and don't edit it. Just finish it. And anything that happens along the way that changes how things should be in the beginning, just write it down in another document or in a notebook. Don't go back and edit your first draft, because then things are going to get messy. It will suck the creativity out of you. So don't do that. So I'm trying not to do that while changing some things and adding many, many things. And right now, a conflict that was very easily resolved initially, I changed it. So now there is a bigger conflict happening, and I will start writing new things from the 6th chapter. definitely more chapters will be added there. And I am at this point. And it took me a long time to actually to find this very helpful video about what was wrong with me and my writing, because I kept, I was inspired, I would write, and then eventually, after that big event happened that should have changed my character's course, I would write more, but nothing felt right. I did not know what was to blame. I thought, okay, that's conflict, it makes sense, but it's boring. That's what I kept thinking. It's boring. This has happened before. This is boring. But I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know. And I actually, for just a moment, I freaked out. I thought, oh my God, I don't like my story. What am I going to do? I freaked out, but just for one moment. And then I thought, okay, take a step back and try to understand what's at fault. And if you cannot understand it, search it on the internet. There are always people willing to help. And that's great. That's a comfort. Oh my God, it's so good that we have the internet and we can do research. We don't have to kill people to know how they smell. Oh my God, but can you imagine how the authors of the very many years ago, how did they do things? How did they do research? Yeah, so it's very good that we have the internet. Apart from this kind of research, I think I searched something that, like, I am at the middle of my story and that I am stuck, and I found this video. Maybe I will link it in the description. It was very, very helpful for me, and I am very grateful to the woman who made this video. So, yeah, but I did freak out for a moment. I did freak out. But the good thing is that I've learned to take a step back and to relax, to say, okay, chill, try to understand what's at fault, and then find the solution. In general, I can be very passionate and emotional, very emotional with certain things, but I'm trying to be reasonable. The important thing is to take a few steps back when you see that you don't know where to go next and try to understand what to do. And try to think rationally, put your emotions to the corner. Don't focus on how important this scene is to you, but look at what's needed for the plot. Anyway, now I'm getting off topic. So that's my writing journey so far. I actually didn't write for quite some time. After I saw this video with the helpful advice, I didn't write because I started making YouTube videos on writing advice, but I am out of writing advice. That was all I knew. So, yeah, now I am back to writing. So I want to continue this channel by focusing on my process. On Saturday, I don't know if I will upload this video on Thursday. I don't know how things will go, but on Saturday, I will upload a video with all the questions that I ask my characters in order to create them. And after that, the video is already ready, but after that video, I'm thinking of just focusing on writing and telling you about it. I don't know if you would be interested in that though. Yeah. that's all I had to say. I think. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this educating. I guess. I don't know. You found this interesting anyway. I actually have an idea for this channel, which is very exciting for me, but I don't know if people would be interested. I want to make a series of a story that I will write a part of the story, and then the audience can decide between two paths that the protagonist can take. And then I will continue writing the story according to the path that had more votes, or that people chose for the protagonist to take. It's an idea. I really like it, and I love the thought that this story takes place in the world of my book, but with a new character that I'm going to create. And I love this because you will also learn the world building. You will get into the world building of my book, and it's exciting. It's really exciting. So this is just a thought. I haven't written anything yet. I haven't created this character, although I had created 2 characters for my book that did not make the cut. So we will see. That's just an idea. Congratulations if you watched this far. I hope you will write beautiful stories, and you will always be inspired. And if you make mistakes, never regret them, because we learn. If we don't make mistakes, we don't learn. So what's the point? We are supposed to make mistakes, and we are supposed to fail in the beginning, and then we need to keep moving forward until we succeed. Basically, success happens when you don't stop. That's what I have realized. As long as you keep moving, success is going to come. Whether success is completing a book, or having it published, or having people reading it and loving it, or becoming a better writer, we will fail in the beginning. We will make mistakes. I mean, if we didn't make mistakes, we would be aliens. Okay, but we are people, we are humans, so we need to make mistakes in order to learn. And that's the beautiful process of being a human being. I don't know how to end this video. Bye-bye, I guess. Happy writing and happy reading. Yes, that was an outro I had thought, but it sounds stupid now. So thank you for watching, and bye-bye.